Welcome to the Kahler Podcast, episode 3. And this one, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the early days, some of the time that Gary spent with Bernie Rico and Grover Jackson, some early endorsees, things like that. But first, we're going to go through some comments. You ready, Gary?
Well, let's go.
Jake Kiernan. Wow, maybe he has very close to the same last name as me. Anyway, Jake says, thanks for showing my comment. Well, I guess we're showing another one. As a Kahler player, I'm surprised at how much I don't know about Kahler. Also, I'm working with Gary and the team to make a custom bass tremolo. 10 out of 10 customer service. I'm stoked to learn more. Jake the Snake. Amazing player. This is the guy, I think he's incorporating a sustainer in with a Kahler whammy bar.
Yep, I saw it.
Well, that's something that I don't think a lot of people know. You guys actually call in and you want something custom. And Gary, you measure out the scale length. You figure out all kinds of things if somebody wants a multi-scale stuff like that.
That's right. We do multi-scale everything. We even have a multi-scale bass. On the intonating difference, it all depends on what degree you're going to put the frets and what kind of multi-scale you're doing. So you need to tell us what that degree is going to be. And if it's a true multi-scale fan type fresh or not.
Indeed, because there are some multi-scales that they're kind of, I don't want to call them like a half multi-scale, but, you know, they start out straight at the nut and then they multi-scale towards the bridge. Then there are those who have, at some point your multi-scale, a fret or the nut is going to be perfectly straight. And then maybe you go multi-scale in both directions, maybe just one. But that all has to be figured out. And that math is figured out by Gary Kahler, just you, right? Nobody else.
Well, in this company, yes.
Now, fair warning, it costs a little extra.
It doesn't cost that much extra. We're making all the way from a 4-string, believe it or not, multi-scale, all the way up to a 10-string multi-scale. Both for stud mount as well as flat mount, and in 3 colors.
The big thing here, too, is that because of the erector set concept of the Kahler, we got to make sure that everything fits everything. We're just talking about a custom plate and a custom cam for extending your scale. Or there was even one guy who had said, I'd really love to play one of your multi-scale extended bridges, but I'm left-handed. Well, they're completely custom.
Well, we take care of him. Hell, yeah. I'm left-handed.
The Tone Priest. Hey, Tone Priest again. Okay. I didn't realize how much I wanted a Kahler trem until watching this video. Great job, guys.
Right.
That is so common. You know, we just had a guy that we happened to meet by random chance when he found out that he was talking to Gary Kahler. He said, geez, can I maybe buy a bridge from you guys? So we had him come out. We sold him a bridge after he tried that white Strat right there that, once again, we are going to give away at some point.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but,
go ahead.
But we met him and at the Sam Ash Show, which is closing here.
We sure did.
In Vegas. And we just got in a conversation. He come out. What was that, on Sunday, I think?
It was on a Sunday. Yeah. On Saturday, we met him. On Sunday, he came out because he was going to fly back home on Monday.
Yep.
And he said, geez, I sure would like to buy a bridge. So we were like, yeah, come on out. Let him try out this guitar over here. I thought he was going to want to come out and maybe buy one of the new Fulcrums. He said, no, I want to try a cam. I've never even seen one live in person.
I think the cam bridges, of course, is what we're best known about from the very beginning. We never want to overlook the fact that that's our main issue here in this company is the cam operator. And I might also add that when we're talking about left and right-handed and multi-scale and everything, those are on cam bridges. Those are not on Fulcrums.
Joe Cooper says, hey, Gary, your insight is priceless and what we need more of. Little quality versus price point goes a long way considering what other systems cost. I'd rather give it to you. Nice job. Keep going. Yeah, $20 licensed under Floyd Rose knockoff on Amazon.
That is really their business. All I know is that our business is that we're made in the USA and we're making things that to order for a lot of our customers out there in the world, as well as our standard stuff. And so, yeah, you can buy a bridge for as low as $20, and ours will go all the way to $800-900. So it's just going to depend on what it is that you want.
Yeah, there's two things that are so obvious they're a cliche. The first one is you get what you pay for, you know, and the other one is if it's too good to be true, it probably is.
Well, here you get what you pay for because Americans are making it. Our main interest right here is let's put Americans to work. It just is so important because we have people that work for the company over 45 years. And I've said this before, that costs money, but they got to have money to live on. And that is what our philosophy is, keep it American.
This one right here, it's going to be very, very brief. We're not going to talk a lot about this, but it's coming. So Scott C. says, Gary and Eddie, another great installment. Can you guys talk about the old style 2520 and the spider slotted fulcrum versus the Steeler style fulcrums, differences, benefits, one another, etc.? Thanks. Now, here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to just preemptive strike and cut this off quick. We will talk about the 2500. We will, I promise, not today, not very much. You got anything briefly?
Yes, I do. I would just like to say, and I've said this before, with OEMs and other factories, they would come to us originally in the 80s, and we'd have to make a price point. So in order to make a price point, that's what that's all about. And believe me, in the very beginning, we had to have money. We didn't come into this business with a lot of capital, and so we had to count on OEMs to give us orders, and we produce it. And whatever they wanted, we tried to do for them. Now, regarding the Steelers and the Spiders, a lot of thought, a lot of engineering went into those.
Heavy emphasis on America, but you know what? Back in those early days with the Flyer and things like that, they were put on import things too. Don't confuse the message. We love all people, but we're an American company, and we want to keep those Americans working, right?
Well, that's why we're here. That's why you're here. But we're reinventing the company again for about the third time. I think we want to take this message directly to the end user and the musicians, both the pro people, the original and regional pro folks, and everybody to know that we're here for you guys.
Now, you know what? I'm going to just kind of break away for one thing real quick. I want to get ahead of this. Kahler will never contact you and ask you for money or ask you for your mother's maiden name or ask you to help us get our vast fortune out of
oh my God,
anything.
You're getting so damn personal there.
This is a problem that happens, and I'm going to tell you this right now. We've already had it happen to us when we left a comment on Angelo Batio's thing. A scam bot came right at us, and you know what? I just got one from Lita Ford. Somebody masquerading as Lita Ford just sent us a message. Oh, this is going to be good. Okay, I am Marc DeLeon from Bakersfield, California. I'm from the band The Mentors and was the guitar player for Edema. I absolutely love Kahler trims. I've ordered straight from Kahler a few times and only took a few days to get them. It's like opening up a jewelry box. Absolutely beautiful work. I've noticed when people say they do not like Kahler, the only experience with Kahler is from the Gibson branded version or the versions on the lower type guitars like Araya Pro 2s from the 80s and other low-end imports. Those tremolos are very different from the Kahler Pros that came on my 1984 USA Charvels and the other trims I ordered direct from Kahler. Now, I personally love finding older Gibsons that have a Kahler style trim, but the first thing that I do is buy a new or a used Kahler branded tremolo. I put the Gibson branded version in a box somewhere, and then you guys have the real Kahler experience. Thank you for your quality products.
That bridge was a really good bridge for its time. It was still using springs on the intonators adjusted, and we had our new saddle set in R&D, but it wasn't ready to fly yet at that time.
The Gibson branded bridge. I think they called it the Master Tune Vibrola. And then the Flyer later, which I'd asked you, why does the Flyer base plate look different? And you said, I want people to be able to immediately tell.
Let me explain that.
Please.
The Flyer base plate, the back two holes in the mounting plate is the same intonating space as all new stuff we have. Screw on the new plate, and the front two holes will be inside, and they are absolutely covered by the new plate by simply screwing the back two in first and then drilling the front two.
Right. Well, while at the same time letting you know that this is not a 2300, it's different. Just by glancing quickly, you can tell. But there are those who really like the look of that bridge, and they make what I like to call a flybrid, where they put those more modern saddles on.
Well,
yeah.
It's all interchangeable. It's engineered to be an erectile set. In other words, if you want to put the lockdown saddles on, you can do that. You can just simply take the spring saddles off and put a lockdown on using the exact same pin.
One last thing about this, I remember the Mentors, and boy, oh boy, Mark, wow. For those of you who remember them, for those of you who know about them, for those of you who know about some of the controversy, we're not going to get into that, but all I can say is, holy crap, this guy has many a story to tell. Tim Stromberg, 8754, said, and this is a good one, Tim, and we're going to address this. I'm going to route a top recess into my newer LTD M1 that currently has a top-mounted Floyd. I put my new Steeler Pro with the auto latch into my other M1000 with the recess for a test fit, and noticed two things. One, the Steeler appears to be hung on the left side of the route to the point where it seems like it might not have enough room and interfere. And two, it looks like I need to add extra room in through the route, since the auto latch will sit where the Floyd had an empty space below where the bar goes. I planned using a regular Floyd route template to do this recess. Any tips or guidance on making this routine would be greatly appreciated. Yes. Now, here's the thing. Gary has been talking to me about this, and I am working on it as fast and feverishly as I can. Now, it will be an auto latch install video for both the Steeler and the Spider. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through the stuff, and there is a video that I did about the different blocks that we have now, and the auto latch does require modification to your guitar.
We've got to get that auto latch video done, and so that people see that, because we have sold many of these auto latches in the last couple of weeks, and I think that video is going to be great.
I am doing everything that I can to have it out immediately after this podcast. Now,
that's right.
It might be a little bit. We are so busy here. There is one disclaimer though that I'm going to say, and that is this: I will not show you how to use a router. I cannot. There's too much liability involved. A router is a very, very, very powerful tool, and in the hands of an expert, it can do amazing things. In the hands of somebody who is not trained, it can be very, very dangerous. So we accept absolutely no responsibility for anyone using a router.
And if you haven't used a router before, don't try it on a guitar. That's all I got to say.
Definitely.
If you want to know how to use it, take a tuba for and go out and practice, and then you shouldn't even do it, because you're not going to know how to hold the wood down.
I had somebody threaten me not too terribly long ago. I gave you a thumbs down, and I might even unfollow you because you're not showing me step by step how to use a router.
We cannot do that.
If I give anybody the false sense of security that they know what they're doing and they hurt themselves, I have to live with that. And I just simply cannot and will not.
We had a couple incidences where there were problems. And actually, the company got sued because the man didn't know how to use a router. And he actually, about 1985, I think it was, if you really know how to use a router, good for you. Be careful. Routers are very dangerous, and you got to know how to hold them down. But more so, you got to know how to hold down that workpiece properly.
And the template. And you know what? You better make sure that your template is rated for the RPMs of that router, because if it's not, it'll just shatter. We don't want to scare anybody, because you know what? The routers are a regular everyday part of life, and there are countless thousands of people that are very competent in using them. The only thing that I would say is that if you're an end user that has never, ever, ever used a router, please find a competent luthier and have them do the routing for you.
I agree.
All right, and that's it for viewer comments. A real early picture of Gary is, it also includes Grover Jackson, Bernie Rico, and somebody who I guess worked for Grover?
Yes, and for the life of me, I cannot remember his name. So if somebody out there knows what his name is, let me know.
I'm going to let you tell us just exactly how much you want people to know about what's going on in this picture right now, because it looks pretty intense.
This is a very intense meeting. It happened in an AM show, and that's Grover Jackson across the table from me. And Bernie Rico with a cigarette in his mouth is sort of looking at it and wondering. We're having quite an argument right there. Anyway, this is taken at the NAMM show, and it is, I believe, at the IMC booth. And a man by the name of Jerry Freed, who was the sales manager, sales everything at IMC, took this picture. And this is a very heated conversation, but yet Grover Jackson is a really good friend of mine, and he's always been, as is Bernie Rico.
We're going to do Grover first, but in those early days, you and Grover and Bernie you guys were a pretty tight-knit little crew, right?
Well, we were kind of separated in a way because I dealt with both Bernie and Grover very closely, as well as Wayne Charvel.
When I was first becoming exposed to guitars, when you saw a Jackson, man, you stood there in awe. Jacksons in the 80s were just works of art. And
Randy Rhoads, I mean.
Randy Rhoads was, you know what that is, the Concorde. That was the absolute beginning. While Charvels were super strats, they had a very conventional look to them, and because the Randy Rhoads concept, the Concorde, was so wildly different, they were afraid to brand it Charvel. As a Gen X 80s kid, when I see a Jackson, a brand new Jackson for $200, when they've just, the brand has been so diluted, it breaks my heart. To me, Jacksons should be that just almost unattainable work of art that you bust your ass to get. But let's talk a little bit about this fella right here doing something that he does a lot, and that would be Little Stevie Vai. His name is Stevie Vai, and he's a crazy guy. Last November, somebody finished this song lyric in the comments. So there's Steve Vai smashing a guitar. I don't know if it's a Jackson or not, but Steve was very involved with Jackson. And look at that just pleased look on his face. Okay, broke that guitar. Next. But that's what Steve Vai does.
Well, that's what he does. He's really an interesting individual. I had an opportunity to spend some time with him at a meeting where we would all get together maybe once a year. It would be the builders in the Los Angeles area. We'd all show up on a weekend at a motel, and then each of us could get a room, and we go from room to room talking to everybody. He definitely has some suggestions on a Kahler. I think he liked some of the suggestions we took. And, of course, he then went with Ibanez, and he has a great deal with Ibanez. And Ibanez wasn't using our bridge. They're out of Japan. Mm-hmm. And that's another whole story. But the fact is, he was just a great guy then. And I'm very happy to see him do so well.
I got to tell you guys a couple things. First off, I have 3 Steve Vai stories from 3 different times I've met him. My favorite guitar player, I'm not even going to try to hide it, but what a nice guy. And you know what? One of these days, I'll share a few of these things with y'all. One thing about Ibanez too, they kind of do the same thing that we do. You know, they're a Japanese company and they want their hardware made in Japan. And, well, we can't get mad at them because we want to put people to work here in America. That's pretty good for Steve Vai. Let's move on to this fellow right here. Absolute guitar legend, Jeff Beck, playing his pink Jackson Soloist with a 2300 on it. Absolute legend. We lost him not too terribly long ago, and we're reeling still, you know. I mean, losing Jeff Beck's like losing Hendrix or Eddie
Jeff
Van
Beck
Halen.
was the man of the day back when. I mean, he was something. And even on this Guitar World deal, you see Lita Ford is starting to come up with the Ford Mustang. That was really important. I might add, too, like Guitar World, Guitar Player. Yeah. All of those were so important.
I always was like, okay, which one do I get? Do I get Guitar World or do I get Guitar for the Practicing Musician? Because I only have $3.
Well, we used to take full pages out for 12 months and get a deal on them. And we called it our concert series at the time. Yeah, we spent a lot of money with Guitar World.
It was money well spent. I almost feel sorry for people today because, you know, coming up as a teenager in the 80s and not having the internet and things like that, there was something really special about waiting for that next episode to come out. And for the most part, that's pretty well gone now.
We used to do the same thing. We couldn't wait until to see if that ad come off right or if it didn't.
What a good segue into this next fella, because you said, you know, want to know if this is a good ad or a bad ad. I remember an ad from this man's company that only made it into two magazines, 2 months, and then it was pulled because people were outraged. Boy, we think that cancel culture is bad now. BC Rich had an ad about plucking a virgin. It made it into 2 magazines, and the outrage was so intense. This picture right here of Bernie Rico is very special because it's one of 2 that I've ever seen in my life where he does not have a cigarette.
Well, just let me say, this is Bernie Rico, and I always really got a kick out of. He's very direct, and nobody doubted who ran the place, and that was Bernie Rico. And the man standing next to him there is Roger Carvin. And Roger Carvin was my sales manager for many years in the very beginning. And I always liked Roger because he was a band director like I used to be, believe it or not.
They look like if you were to take that guitar away and put them in like maybe an Italian restaurant setting, that it'd be like, hey there, Tony Fingers.
Well, if you don't buy our guitar, you can suffer the consequences. You know.
You mentioned Shark Island, so this is the lead guitar player, Spencer Surcom, I think.
Yeah.
If I'm pronouncing your last name wrong, Spencer, I apologize.
He was a great influence on what we did because he was a proving ground in the probably 81, and I would go to Bernie's place, BC Rich, and he would take it out and do a gig and come back. I mean, I'll never forget this. He said, this damn thing doesn't work for me. And so we would go over and over and figure out, well, the springs weren't heavy enough or the tuning wasn't right, the saddles weren't right or something. But we eventually got it, and I'll never forget the day he come back and said, this is great, this is perfect. Very important person in the development of the Kahler Bridge.
I discovered heavy metal in 1982 when I was exposed to Iron Maiden, Number of the Beast, and as time went on, you know, of course, Dio, Black Sabbath, Lita Ford, Motley Crue, all these other people that were mainstream that you would see. But by the time that 85 rolled around, I needed something just a little heavier. And boy, oh boy, am I excited to one day meet Kerry King from Slayer.
Well, Kerry King and Jeff Hanneman. Slayer.
You know what? You're gonna get on me, and I don't care. You know what? That is not the proper way to say Slayer. Any Slayer fan knows that there is only one proper way to say Slayer, and that is by adding one word. And this is how you do it. There you go.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that.
Hey, those who get it,
they don't
get
particularly
it.
appreciate it. I don't either. But I can just tell you that they're my best friends.
Well,
and that is just the way it is in the rock and roll business. Anyway, Kerry King and Jeff started playing early on my bridges.
Now, you
and
remember
again,
them.
Oh, hell yeah. And Bernie Rico knew him well because of playing the BC Rich. I can't recall the exact time when I first met them, but they were a major influence. Kerry King and Jeff were the biggest endorsers that we had from the very beginning, but then Lita Ford came in there as well as Jerry Cantrell.
So you have known these two since the early 80s.
Yep.
When they were kids.
Yep.
Jeff Hanneman had a greeting for you that he would say every single time, and you know what? I'm not going to say it because I already used my one word one time. All I got to say is this. Thank you, Slayer, for giving 15-year-old me a place to channel all that aggression that I had. It's so important to my early development, and that is why.
Yep.
Any chance I get to say anything nice about Slayer, I'm going to take it.
This is what we would pass out the damn show, and he would sign, and we'd have lines a block long, show up for the signing.
One last picture. There's Gary and Carrie, and the granddaughter, and I'm guessing her husband.
Yes, that's Jasmine. My granddaughter.
Really, the only reason that I'm pulling this up right here is because that Venom shirt right there. Not only do I love that album, I have that shirt and I wear it all the time. So, Kerry King, I like the cut of your jib. Can't talk about BC Rich without talking about Lita Ford, the queen of heavy metal.
Oh my God, Lita Ford, been with us forever, and she's a wonderful endorser and a wonderful person. And we're just thankful that Lita and all these great people was playing our stuff, and it still are today. That's 40-some years later. I mean, that's pretty amazing.
Well, I got to tell you guys, we are going to do entire podcasts that are nothing but Lita Ford, nothing but Slayer.
Yep.
So we're going to kind of leave it alone right now, except I do want to point out one thing. Right behind Gary, right now, there's a Jeff Hanneman ESP, a Kerry King BC Rich, and another BC Rich that was actually custom made, only one in the world, given to you as a gift by Lita Ford. You had absolutely no idea, with both of your logos on it at the 2017, I believe, NAMM show.
And I don't remember the year. You probably know better than I, but they presented that to me at the NAMM show.
Yeah, and also a little birthday cake at a concert.
Oh, that was a big deal. Well, 5 years ago, I was 80 years old, so on my 80th birthday, Lita's in the middle of a concert, and she's very much in control on stage. Well, right in the middle of it, she just stops everything and says, "Some people might wonder how I get some of the sounds I do." He said, "I want you to know I'm paying a Kahler tremolo, and Kahler's in the audience, so I want him to come up here on stage." Well, there's about 5,000-6,000 people at this venue, and with the strong lights coming from upstage, the smoke was rising into the sky because it's an outside venue. And, of course, everybody is enjoying himself that day.
Little jazz cabbage going on.
They had an usher right behind me, took me up on stage, and make a long story short, she presented me with a huge chocolate cake and wished me a happy 80th birthday, and that was very nice. My granddaughter was with me at the time, and she had a big surprise. She wondered, my God, what's going on?
I can't wait to talk a little bit more about Lita Ford. I've got a personal little story, like I was saying, I discovered metal in 82. I completely, by accident, discovered Lita Ford in 83. The Out for Blood album, and boy, oh boy, did that change everything for me. But that is a story for another time. I do have to ask you this. Did you know Lita back in the Runaways days, or was it right after that?
If I did, I didn't know that I did. I don't remember.
And let's be absolutely clear here. When it comes to the age-old debate of Where did heavy metal come from? Who invented heavy metal? For me, there's absolutely zero discussion. It was Black Sabbath. Who is the very first female heavy metal? Lita Ford. No question.
It's got to be Lita Ford.
Absolutely no question.
Well, not only that, she's opened it up for a whole lot of other women.
Tongue-tied trying to think of all the things that I want to say about Lita Ford, but save for when it's specifically her. She's going to be here in town very soon. I can't wait to go see her. I've never got the chance to see her live. I can't wait. Well, now it's time to talk about a couple of the other early OEMs that used the Kahler stuff. Obviously, special connection between Jackson and BC Rich and Kahler. That's great. But let's talk about this photo.
This is very, very important. Of course, that's Dave Storey.
Yep.
Late Dave Storey. What a wonderful person. This is Denny Handa. Denny Handa was the sales manager, marketing manager, everything of Fender. Gee, we got along so well, and we'd done so many things together. The first thing we did was in the middle 70s, going into the late 70s with Brass Factory. Got my start in the manufacturing really through making brass pieces for Fender. And Denny Handa was the main person along with McLaren. They really helped me to start in the business.
This guy right here is probably pretty important.
Oh, my God. That's Bruce Boland from Kalamazoo, Michigan. And it's got to be about 1981 or 1982. This was taken later, but the first time I ever met Mr. Boland was at Gibson in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Right.
Before they were ever purchased and then moved to Nashville. At that time, that was the first time I'd ever had an order for 500 pieces labeled Gibson.
Yeah, that's got to be really something. And you heard it here. There's only 500 of those in the world. So if you've got a Kahler that's labeled Gibson, you might want to hang on to that or try to get somebody to give you their firstborn for it because it's rarer than hen's teeth.
After 500, we would put Kahler on. The Fender Stratocaster was much more heavy in the rock and roll business at that time, and they needed a good tremolo.
Now we will move along to this fella.
This is Peavey, and that's Roger Carvin, my sales manager, looking dapper as he always did with that mustache and a three-piece suit. He kind of looked like he came in and out of the dark there.
That's right. Hey there, Tommy the Lips. You want to wear some concrete galoshes?
This man is Mike Powers, and he was the person in charge of all guitars at Peavey. Great guy. He later was transferred to and was in China because they had a facility, and he was there managing it, and unfortunately something happened and he actually died. Great guy. I'll always remember him as being very innovative and a good man to get along with.
Now, one thing about Peavey that was, it always kind of struck me as really interesting. The very first time that I ever saw any kind of trem on a bass was a Peavey Dynabass, and it was installed from the factory. That to me just says that Peavey was actually really willing to try ideas no matter what. Some of their early electronics were so completely and totally innovative.
Yep.
The T40, the T60, things like that.
That's because Harley was an electronics genius.
That kind of innovation, I know that's something that you really appreciate.
Well, we always did. That was the thing I liked about Hartley and Mike.
There's Dave Storey again. Now, this is one of the Kiesel brothers, right?
That was a major decision in 82 to sell Carvin because, as you know, they sold direct.
Kind of like we're doing now.
That's right. And a lot of OEMs didn't like that. I took a lot of heat for selling Carvin, but we did. Times have changed, and maybe some end users will talk to Carvin for us.
Do you think that because of the heat you took from Carvin, do you think you actually lost sales with other OEMs because you did business with them? Had it gotten that extreme yet?
Well, we'd never know. I do know that it was a special experience for us because it's the only person that we were selling that was going directly to end users. I would just always take some heat for that. But I did it anyway because, what was it? Great company in San Diego area.
Yeah.
And I was located in Anaheim, California. Why wouldn't we do business with these folks, So we did.
I love the Carvin stuff. That right there, that's my blue Carvin, and it has a Steeler on it with the auto latch. Here's another one. Paul Hamer.
Oh, my God. Paul Hamer. That's right. And there is Roger Carvin again. Paul Hamer was a real character. I mean, he was a really fine player, and by golly, he ran his company well. It was a pleasure just actually to go through his factory and talk to him a number of times about what he did.
Probably your big connection to these guys was through Hamer, and that would be Judas Priest.
That's right.
Once again, Judas Priest, what a big deal they were to us kids back in the day. I mean, they were such a big deal and continue to be. Even though both of these guitar players are no longer in the band, those custom Hamers that they used to make for KK Downing, and Glenn Tipton has said on many occasions that he prefers the Kahler.
ESP carries a special Tipton model, and they buy our bridges for that. Tipton, his guitar, and his personality live on.
The first NAMM show, where you guys were like, okay, well, we're a new company with a new product, and we need somebody to champion that cause. And there he is.
Yep.
Adrian Belew.
Adrian Belew, how important he was. I don't know if this was the first NAMM show, but it was one of the first ones within the first 5 years. He was really great. He was a very good friend with Dave Storey, and that's Dave Storey and his wife to the right of the picture.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I look half out of it in that picture. And on the other side is my wife Carol. I can just say that it was a great show, and he did a great job on that show. We rented a 10,000 square foot concert room and filled it, and some of the things he did were just great. I know we got some recordings of that somewhere. We'll have to find them later.
Oh, my God. If you've got never seen before Adrian, but so I am one of the biggest Frank Zappa fans out there, and Adrian Belew is just, if you know, you know. And then, of course, right after that, David Bowie. There's a very, very funny story about how David Bowie got Adrian to go play on tour with him, but I've already used my one and only F-bomb on this episode, so I'm not going to tell that story.
Yep.
King Crimson. There's the 80s celebration of King Crimson that Adrian is behind right now. Adrian, or anybody who knows Adrian, if you want to use those original Kahler-equipped things that you were using in the 80s when you were doing King Crimson, we are behind you. Please get a hold of us. We've even reached out to his luthier in Nashville to say, like, if you want anything and we can help you, we're on it.
Hey, and I just like to say one more thing. I think this is a great picture of Valerie and David's story. And that's, I believe, is the only picture that I have of Valerie and David.
We are going to do something one day where we talk a lot about Dave's story, because he was so important. And I've never heard you say anything but just the most wonderful, glowing things about Dave's story.
This couple was great people. They came from New Zealand. And I can just say that, I've had an opportunity to correspond with Valerie after David passed. And we always wish her the very best. She's an accomplished publisher of children's books and has done very well in that. And, of course, the picks.
The Dava picks?
Yes.
D-A, Dave, V-A, Valerie.
That's
Dava.
Right. Dava, Dave and Valerie.
We'll spend a lot more time talking about Dave's story and how you two work together. Yep. So hard to develop that cam bridge, maybe show some of the early prototypes.
Oh, we got drawers and drawers of all the stuff that didn't work, I can tell you.
So now we're just going to look at a couple, endorsers that we haven't already talked about, just kind of random. They don't necessarily fall under one category or another. And the first one would be this fellow right here.
Oh, my God.
Phil Collen of Def Leppard, a good friend of Dave's Storey, right?
Very good friends, yes. One of the very first stars to play our Bridges. After Carrie and they were playing it.
Pyromania was huge. And once again, I was a little kid, and geez, it just so cool now to be learning about all the behind the scenes, the history.
Neal Schon, absolutely, of Journey.
Yeah.
We had a great relationship with Journey and Neal. You know, all these things happened a few years ago, but it was the making of the Kahler Company and of American Precision. Very important people like this, because they were a big deal at the time, and they still are. The record's still out there.
Journey, the thing about Journey is that they actually started out as like kind of musicians. A lot of them came from Carlos Santana's band, including Neal Schon. I actually have an Atari 2600 game that's all about the band Journey. All right, well, I know that this particular fellow's a personal favorite of yours. What can you tell me about that guy?
Angelo. Oh, my God. What a hell of a musician. Highly educated, music schools, and had played our stuff from the very beginning. Right here, he's representing Risk Guitars at the time. So he was at the AAA, and on one of the shows he was doing there, he broke an E string, and I was amazed because it all sounded the same, because he just transposed it as to whatever key he had to go into to make it sound the same. What a musician. And a reader and all that kind of thing. And a great guy, by the way.
Sawtooth is who he plays their stuff now. Angelo is very, very interactive with his fans. He's got this, he's a funny guy too.
Oh,
he's such a funny guy. He had this thing that he used to do back in the 80s with he's got his this instructional video, Speed Kills, and boy, did he just play up that whole 80s thing. He would sit there and be like, if you got it, flaunt it, and it was just so awesome, so 80s. And now he's got this thing where he'll put up his hand and he'll argue with himself, just really there for the fans. Amazing, ambidextrous musician. Plays what he called the double X, not a double neck. Double neck's paid by Jimmy Page. Double X. In fact, Steve Vai's heart guitar that we just saw at the Hard Rock.
Yep.
That was an answer.
That's right.
To Michelangelo's double X.
Yes, it was.
So then instead of 3 necks, Michelangelo gets 4 necks. And then I think the very last crazy 4-neck guitar that I saw him do, the bottom necks were on like servo motors, and they would move up and down.
I hadn't seen that.
Oh, it's really something. I'll have to dig it out. But amazing guy. I'd love to meet this guy too. And he's currently playing with Manowar.
We want to get him on a podcast when he's here, and I'll give him a call. I'm sure he'll show up.
I would absolutely love to meet him. He just, everything about him, he's always got a smile on his face unless it's a promo picture.
Yeah, the folks when they're in Las Vegas or whatever, we'd like them. Any of these pros that I've dealt with. And there's really hundreds of them, can come in here and be on our podcast. We'll get our studio done and go from there. We should have it done by the end of next month.
We are certainly we're pulling out all the stops to get that studio done with full video capability. Speaking of important players, here's another one.
I'll tell you what, a little Western here and there didn't hurt us at all.
ZZ Top is definitely rock and roll with a little bit of that Southern twang. They've done so many cool things.
They really did. I remember once they were in town and they needed something, and when I was in California, and I was able to meet the band and so forth. But what a group of people, and they're still performing today, only with more beard.
Beard, yeah. Except for, ironically, their drummer Frank Beard, who's incapable of growing a beard, so he only has a mustache. Sadly, Dusty Hill is no longer with us. I believe that Dusty's bass tech has now taken over Dusty's role. Most people that I know, when they think of ZZ Top, they're thinking about the Eliminator album, Give Me All Your Love, and watching them, Dusty and Billy Gibbons, twirling their guitars in unison and things like that. But man, you want to go back to Fandango and listen to I Heard It on the X. I mean, ZZ Top, they actually took an entire production with them on an early tour to give everybody a taste of Texas, because they're known as the little old band from Texas. And I got nothing but wonderful things to say about ZZ Top.
Vivian Campbell,
amazing work on those early Dio albums. I honestly had no idea he played a Kahler. Man, I tell you what, I didn't know when I first saw this if I was going to pass out or cry or what. This guy, such a hero to me.
What is it?
Alex Lifeson of Rush.
I'll tell you, he was very important at the time, and still is. I mean,
still is.
I got to tell you, it was a pleasure to deal with Rush. They were really big influencers at the time. And
they still are.
And they still are. That's right. We appreciate Alex. We really, really do.
Another guy that is just really funny. Really funny guy. I am going to stop myself as best I can, but I just got to say, for everybody else out there, Rush is one of those bands that has different levels of fan. There's like, oh yeah, Tom Sawyer's cool, and then there are people that are like, you know what? I mean, that Rush writes some pretty intense stuff. Have you ever heard The Trees? And then there are people like me who are just completely and totally lunatics.
Well, email us. Let us know what you think of this podcast.
Oh my God, Alex Lifeson, email us, please. Thank you very much. I don't care why. Okay. And you know what? There's only one other person. I couldn't find a picture of him. But if there's any one band that is on the same level with Rush for me, and I couldn't find any pictures of these guys here, but I know they played your stuff, Iron Maiden.
Yep.
Iron Maiden changed my life. Dave Murray's Black Strat, one of them, 2300. And once again, now this is the Kahler podcast, not the Eddie podcast. And so I'm just going to leave the Iron Maiden and the Rush stuff alone. Well, I think that was a pretty good introduction to some of the behind the scenes from the early days.
We have great appreciation for all the people who have endorsed our product and for all the people that bought our product. 1,262,000 of these units out there, and for you folks that are that bought them in the early 80s and so forth, if you need parts, make sure you let us know, because we got about 90% of the parts. I think that's about it.
Yeah,
for this podcast.
I think so, and it's important to say too that you have always made it a point to try to make sure that things are compatible. So if you maybe need something that we don't have anymore, but there's a good chance that something will retrofit on there.
Yeah, and if it doesn't retrofit it, and if you have a Kahler particularly, and you need a part, we might just offer you something for your bridge as a trade-in.
Once again, comments, questions, things like that, keep them coming, because that's the easiest way to get your question right in front of Gary Kahler, and your easiest way for him to answer it directly to you. So until next time, this has been great. I've been Eddie Kernan.
And I'm Gary Kahler, and thanks for joining us.
See you next week.